So, good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see you here this morning on the banks of the river on Melbourne Cup Day. I won't steal your thunder, Minister, but as I understand it, we'll have more people at the Melbourne Cup at Ascot than they'll have in Melbourne at the Melbourne Cup. So we're in a great position in this state at the moment. I'm David Eaton, the CEO of the Small Business Development Corporation and the Small Business Commissioner for Western Australia, and importantly, your MC for today. Firstly, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the Minister for Small Business, the Honourable Reece Whitby, MLA. The member for Wanaroo, Sabine Winton, MLA, will be here shortly. She's representing the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable John Carey. I'd like to acknowledge the Chair of our board, of the Small Business Development Corporation Board, Steve Dobson, and Board Member Danelle Cross. Thank you for being here. Mr Tim Fraser, the Executive Director of Local Government, representing the Director General of the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries. Thank you, Tim, for being here. Mr Nick Sloan, who's CEO of Walga, CEOs and staff of the many small business-friendly local governments and invited guests, thank you very much for being here. Today's an opportunity to celebrate a milestone of collaboration between state government, local government and small business. And I recognise how extremely busy you all are. Some may have the opportunity to see the cup, others are telling me they're back to the office. But we will ensure that we can get you out of here by 9 o'clock. However, if you do have the ability to stay and network, we have the room and lots of coffee, good coffee, available until 10 o'clock. Members of my team from the SBDC are here this morning and will be more than happy to speak with you about what you hear today, ideas you might gain, services you might want to tap into. So please, I won't embarrass them by getting them to stand up, but they're spread around the room. Don't hesitate to stick around, network and speak with them. Now it's my great honour to welcome traditional owner and Whadjuk Noongar representative Mr Barry Maguire to the stage to conduct a welcome to country on behalf of the Whadjuk people on the land on which we are meeting this morning. Welcome, Barry. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to SBDC for the things that have happened to me over the years, and to all special guests, good morning. 7.5 years ago, my little company started through many, many different meetings and trying to understand how do we get to where we are. And we're not so small anymore. We run about 3 different companies that services the oil and gas and the mining and a lot of culture around town, and just finding our way through and how do we fit within the Australian economy and the way that businesses have been constructed. We as Aboriginal people have had, well, myself has had the opportunity to meet many minds, many people with great understanding of how to structure business. Because as you see, for us as Aboriginal people, we weren't a part of it. It wasn't there yesterday. But we use yesterday's story in order to create one while our eyes are open. We use yesterday's stories to create our business and to find pathways in through industry of where we can stand and where we can be seen. And so we're a distributing company selling into the likes of FMG, Roy Hill, and all the big names. Now Chevron, Woodside, talking to them. We have an office in Darwin and we're looking to spread out into Queensland. But looking at the opportunities also from a cultural aspect, working in safety. How does safety is a broad part of us as human beings. Welcomes to countries was always to that point. You see here in this place here where we are sitting on the outskirts, just a little bit further back, it's a place called Gumup. And in a place called Gumup for thousands of years, our people came and they practiced this welcome to country. It took up to 2 weeks or more. So today you're going to miss out on Melbourne Cup. No, just joking. Welcomes to countries are very important. It's not just an Aboriginal thing. It's a human thing. It's how do we find a balance between us as human beings and to build that smile that is within it. Because if we can't find a way to stand together, why should we call ourselves a nation of nations? And as you look around this room, you see many, and the many pathways of your ancestral run that has gotten here is just as hard as my ancestors. It doesn't matter. So we look at yesterday's stories and blend them together to find that synergies of humanistic existence. And so as it is beautiful to see many nations here on the Wajok lands today. And may the energies of my grandmothers and my grandfathers who've gone before me and still walk with me, just like yours, hold your spirit and light safely like they've always held mine. Later on as you travel home to your place of rest or to your place of where you're going to meet with all of your colleagues today. May the energy and spirit in this land rise up and hold you safely as we travel together as humans. So be safe. Welcomes to Countries is about inclusiveness. It always has been. And safety in its best possible way. Find your smile with the person next to you or the people that you walk with, because when your eyes are open, that's the only time that you can make a change, no matter where you come from. When your eyes are open, that's the only time you have, because when you close them, will they be there tomorrow? Welcome everybody. Be blessed in the things that you do. And I'm very honoured that I was a part of the SBDC process and program, because I can leave something for my children now today. God bless everybody. Have a safe Melbourne Cup. And hope you win lots. I don't bet, but have a great morning and travel well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry, for welcoming us to this country at this beautiful location overlooking the, now, am I going to be able to say this right? The Darble Urigan. Close. Barry's not only a respected Wajak representative, but a very successful business person who established Red Spear Safety, which has become a major success story in Western Australia, Aboriginal-led business. Barry's had a relationship with the SBDC for many, many years. From his early days in business, and I've learned a lot from him over those years. So thank you for what you've shared with us today and previously, Barry. Today is an opportunity to share a few highlights into the achievements of the small business friendly collaboration. This is not about the SBDC, it is absolutely about everybody in this room who's worked with us over several years. Before I ask Minister Whitby to come to the stage, I want to put the program into some historical context. While the SBDC has been assisting small businesses since it was established by Maguire in 1984, what a visionary in 1984 to recognise that small businesses needed somewhere to navigate all the tiers of government. I would suggest that it's only in the last decade or so that the community has really recognised how important small business is to our economy and, importantly, our community. Several years ago, this government made a significant focus on creating jobs and diversifying the economy. You know, we need to move beyond our reliance on the resources sector. Not stop the resources sector, Barry, but diversify beyond it. For me and the team at the SBDC, that meant that there was a huge opportunity to realise and look at what it means to make small businesses stronger. Part of that strategy was to look at the ways that state and local governments and the organisations within those tiers of government could collaborate more effectively for the benefit of our small business stakeholders. I say our because both levels of government have the ability to pull many levers, be it reducing administrative burden of cumbersome regulation or how we could empower small business operators to be more successful with just a little bit of support and a little bit of resources. Now, some of you, like me, may have been around for a long time and long enough to remember that a year or two earlier, things were a little tense between state and local government, and perhaps collaboration wasn't at the forefront of our minds at the time. Around the same time, I was meeting my New South Wales colleague, the Small Business Commissioner at the time, Robin Hobbs, who'd actually established the Small Business Friendly Local Council program. And like good West Australians, we borrow things from other states and then we improve on them. So we came back with our unique idea of how we were going to build this program. But importantly, what we had was some relationships with mayors and CEOs from a range of local governments, and we wanted to test the appetite for a collaborative program. I must admit, there's a few in the room who said when I invited them for a breakfast at a couple of cafes, we're going, what does he want? Particularly around this time. What we found was not only support for the concept, but many LGAs were already moving down this path. They were already making their areas more attractive and supportive places for small businesses to start and grow. So in August 2016, the Small Business Friendly Local Government Initiative was formally launched. Now, you all signed a charter, but for me it was an opportunity not only for improvement, but actually to recognise that there were many, many local governments that were doing lots of great things with small businesses, carrying burdens that were cascaded down to them from other tiers of government. So we wanted to recognise those, and it was a vehicle, the beginning of a journey. Many of those first supporters of that initiative are here this morning, and we find ourselves celebrating the first 5 years and some great milestones, and you'll hear from the panel just some elements of that journey of working together towards mutual goals of what I say is just improving the operating environment for small businesses. We're not there yet, but we've come a long way, and there's been some excellent progress made. So I want you to reflect on that today and celebrate, but don't become complacent, because we've got to keep pushing, particularly now as we come out of COVID. So enough of the history lesson. I would now like to welcome the Honourable Reece Whitby MLA to the stage. Reece has been a member for Baldivis since March 2017, and following the 2021 election, was appointed the Minister for the portfolios of Emergency Services, Racing and Gaming, which is why he's wearing the suit he's wearing, Small Business and Volunteering. Please welcome the Minister for Small Business.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for that welcome, David. And he did cruelly suggest that he should have advised people to wear sunglasses this morning on account of this suit. But it's my special suit I bought when I became Racing Minister, and this is the day I've decided to break it out. So anyway, but no need for sunglasses, because I think we've got a bit of a Melbourne day out there by the look of it, but I think it's going to be a fantastic day. Can I thank Barry for your incredibly eloquent and inspiring welcome to country. Inspiring for a number of reasons, including your insight into the potential for Indigenous enterprise. So you've got an amazing example in terms of your own business, and may it inspire many other Aboriginal businesses to proceed on a similar path. So thank you for that, Barry. And you like that other Maguire. I see you everywhere. Well, we kept keeping the other one out, aren't we? So we've got you. We only need the one Maguire. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we meet. And there's a few other people in the room I'd like to acknowledge. Sabine Winton, I think Sabine is here a little bit later on, she's not already here, as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier, who's also representing the Minister for Local Government, John Carey. Obviously our Small Business Development Commissioner, David Eaton, Walga CEO Nick Sloan, Steve Dobson, the Chair of the Board, and indeed a room full of CEO and local government leaders that play an important role in our community, especially with those links and encouragement to small business. So I'm delighted to join you this morning to celebrate the significant milestone for the Small Business Friendly Local Governments Initiative, which, as we know, is managed by the SBDC, which is a government agency dedicated to advocating for and delivering support to West Australian small business. It is one of the great parts of government, a very nimble and agile agency that responds incredibly well and is full of people who actually have experience in small business. And I just want to acknowledge the role of the SBDC that you've played, David, and your team, many of whom are here this morning, in terms of the COVID response, because it's been a tough time for small business, as well as a time for opportunity, and our SBDC have played a key role in advising business, but also in terms of getting out grant support to many thousands or hundreds of businesses over the past 18 months. My main goal as Minister for Small Business is to support small business, to help small businesses start, grow and thrive in our state. And I'd like to see Western Australia get the reputation as the best place in the country to start a small business. There are 227,000 small businesses operating in our state, and they contribute an estimated $54 billion to the state economy every year. They also employ more than 460,000 people. They make up nearly 98% of all businesses in the state, 98%. They provide local jobs, amenities, attractions, and they drive reinvestment back into our communities. And I think there's another role they play, and I think it's often overlooked apart from the economic impact, and that is they actually provide a sense of place to our communities. You think about the places that we value and regard in our communities, the high streets and the neighbourhoods, and it's built around a small business or many small businesses. So that's why the state government wants to make it as easy as possible to create an environment that allows small businesses to succeed, and we want to support this dynamic sector. It's very rewarding to know that the Small Business Friendly Local Government Initiative has already proven to be incredibly effective in bringing together business and local government. The program aims to both recognise what local governments are currently doing to support their small businesses and encourages them to make specific commitments to make things even better. The initiative is a great example of state and local governments working together, and since it started in 2016, there are now 51 local governments that have joined the program. The first was the town of Victoria Park, and the most recent was the Shire of Boddington. There are almost equal numbers of metropolitan and regional local governments involved. Those include ones with many thousands of businesses, such as the City of Stirling, and those with a few hundred, like the Shire of Collie. Because of the initiative, 80% of the approximately 227,000 small businesses in WA now operate in a small business-friendly local government area. Now, some of the forward-thinking activities introduced by local governments include establishing rent-free periods for new pop-up shops for new businesses in the Shire of Northam, giving $100 vouchers to 8,500 households to spend in local businesses in the city of Karratha. And I remember speaking to the Mayor, Peter Long, up in Karratha, in that vibrant sort of civic centre heart of Karratha, and he was telling me about how well that project operated to assist small businesses during the COVID period in our northwest. Creating buy local campaigns to encourage residents to shop locally, offering networking opportunities for small businesses, and creating a simplified trading partnership permit between the city of Canning, Gosnells and the town of Victoria Park to allow food businesses to use one permit to operate at community events in any of those three local government areas. So that was a really intelligent and helpful move, because obviously many of our small businesses operate across local government boundaries, and that consistency was very important to them. All of these are fantastic initiatives, some very simple and inexpensive, but all have helped small businesses to thrive across our state. In addition, small business-friendly local governments played a critical role in supporting small businesses through the impacts of COVID-19, and many of your councils have waived rates or licence fees or suspended rental cost when businesses operate in your own facilities. And I know there's been an example of that in my area with Rockingham and I believe Kwinana as well. I want to encourage you all to keep up the good work and to do even more to build your local government's reputation as a great place to have a business. I encourage everyone here this morning to call on the resources of the SBDC to help you achieve this. They offer a wide range of practical assistance that can deliver directly into your local government area, and I believe there's some information you can take away with you today. And the good thing about the business advisors at SBDC is, as I've said previously, they often have run their own small businesses. They have actually real-life practical advice. The SBDC is also continuing some very exciting and groundbreaking work as a result of the Small Business Friendly Local Government Initiative with the Small Business Friendly Approvals Program. And this program aims to streamline the licensing and approvals process when small businesses start up and is part of the state government's commitment to regulatory reform. So we're asking local government to play a role in helping small businesses, and we actually appreciate the fact absolutely that the state government also has a responsibility and a commitment to small business across Western Australia in the way we conduct ourselves, and indeed whether it's doing business with as many small businesses as we can or making processes in the bureaucracy smoother and less burdensome. I know that the Small Business Commissioner will share more about this particular program with you, so I will conclude by saying that I'm pleased to see the achievements made so far in the first half decade. I'm excited about what's to come for small business, and I look forward to seeing more wins from each of your local government areas and across our state as we work together in partnership. So thank you very much for making the early start here this morning. Good luck on the big race. I hope you have a win, but I think if you're part of this program, you've already had a win. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We're now going to take a short break and breakfast will be served, and I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back in about 15. Thank you. So, thank you everybody. I'm happy for you to keep enjoying your breakfast as I continue to speak, so the clunking of forks and knives won't bother me. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the coffee. It's my one vice, good coffee. Life's too short to have bad coffee. As the Minister mentioned in his address, one of the outcomes of the larger Small Business Local Government Initiative is the Small Business Friendly Approvals Program. We embarked on the first stage of this program in 2019 when we tested the concept with the cities of Stirling and Canning to look at how we could fast-track reform of their approvals processes. We worked closely together to map each local government's approvals pathway with small businesses and identified obstacles and opportunities to ease the compliance burden on local small businesses. Then we designed reforms to achieve a more streamlined approvals process. Those two pilots identified 61 opportunities for reform across both local governments. Once implemented, we projected conservatively that savings would be around $3.7 million each year for the small businesses that applied for development approvals, an average saving of $11,000 per business. Now, as we arrived at these conclusions, COVID struck, and the state government Streamline WA group was keen to identify ways to reduce red tape and help our state's economy continue and rebound from the impact of the pandemic. If there's one benefit from living through COVID, I think it's been this focus on our economy and how we can help businesses get through this. So, never missing an opportunity for funding, we submitted a proposal based on our pilot for funding. And we received funding for 2 years and committed to work with 20 more local governments over this next year. 2 years. I think Lauren just had a kitten saying 1 year, 2 years. So far, we've delivered or progressing approvals programs with 12 local government authorities across both metro and regional areas. Our learnings through this program is that this type of reform is difficult, it's challenging, and that's true of all tiers of government. That's why it's so difficult to do. It involves redesigning of everything from application forms through to assessment processes, looking at the data we collect and the computer systems that we store it in, websites, customer service, all sorts of things. It challenges, particularly when you have a small business coming in and tell you what they hate about engaging with you. And this is true of all tiers of government. Most of all, it challenges the very culture and purpose of regulation. And I'll be a bit provocative because I've had an argument with a Harvard professor about this. Is it the role of a regulator to hinder the creation of business or to facilitate and guide its development? I understand that for some people who work in the regulatory environment, their focus is on risk. And as a result, they're very attuned to looking at what can go wrong. And I'm not dismissing the importance of identifying and managing risk. That is why we have law and that is why we have regulation. But once identifying that risk, what do? So one of the things that I heard early in life was the words of Edward Kennedy, and it comes to mind quite often for me in this role. And he spoke at his brother Robert's funeral, and he said, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. His brother dreamt of things that never were and said, why not?" When we look at the impact that just a few small changes can make on the success or the hindrance of a small business, I think all of us should start to say, why not? And I'll say again, that's not to abolish regulation. It has a very good purpose. We wouldn't be able to eat at restaurants in Western Australia safe in the knowledge that our food is safe if we didn't have health regs. So COVID's thrown a spotlight on our economy, its fragile supply chains, the industries that we need now onshore, and it's reinforced this need for diversification and innovation in our economy. And I'm very optimistic about our future and the possibility of growing the West Australian economy and the local economies through small business now is better than ever. So now is time, I think, for all of us to think about this enablement more and more, how we enable through regulation rather than hinder. So, prior to introducing the panel, I'd like to show you a small video about some of the things the approvals program has demonstrated. Thank you.
It's hard to turn on the TV at the moment without someone saying common sense approach. And I think that is something that really resonates with the way that we deal with local councils. And as a family-owned business, a small business, we really need local councils to have that common sense approach.
The Small Business Friendly Approvals Program is ultimately about improving the operating environment for small businesses. We start by working with local governments to improve their application and licensing processes and streamline the whole process to make it easier for the small businesses and the local government themselves.
The City of Wanaroo was really proud to be part of the program. Small business is a really important aspect of our local economy. We're one of the fastest growing local governments in Australia, and our biggest challenge is creating local jobs. So small business is a driving force for local jobs, and whatever we can do as a council to enable businesses to choose to either set up in the City of Wanaroo or expand in the City of Wanaroo will only help us meet our employment targets.
This is quite transformational for some local governments, recognising the value that small businesses bring to their community and the important role they can play in making it easier for them to establish and grow.
So we're here at MP Brewers. We are at our new site in Wanaroo. So we are a production brewery which been operating since 2017. The new site features a cellar door.
Definitely having an advocate within the city. So we've worked closely with Caroline in the city of Wanaroo in their economic development area. Having a phone you can pick up and call someone who will find out the information you need. You can't have a list that continually grows. It's completely prohibitive for a small business. You need to be able to plan from the outset.
So here in the city of Wanaroo, we have roughly 13,000 local businesses, and I think about 98% of them constitute small business. Small businesses kind of forms the backbone of our local economy, and it really offers those local employment opportunities to people who live and work locally.
The City of Wanaroo has an amazing set of staff who are really focused on understanding growth and managing growth. So this provides a great professional development opportunity for our staff to further enhance their skills in process improvement, but more importantly to understand the needs of our small business community and how we can reform and improve our processes so we continue to deliver excellent services to our business community.
My background is building and planning approvals. So I was a team leader in the approval services unit. I was involved because I was able to bring in my knowledge of what we currently do and how we can fix that and make improvements going forward.
Having that direct feedback from small businesses and then being able to go back to the small businesses as well throughout the process and say, look, this is what we've heard from you and this is what we're doing. And this is going to be the long-term end goals that we're trying to achieve.
So an example of that is we're working on auto approvals is one of the workflows that came out of the small business workshop, and we're looking to do the same thing across the city for other kind of approval processes.
The approvals program is part of a package of initiatives that will accelerate regulatory reform and stimulate economic recovery. Now it has been fully funded for the next 2 years under the Streamline WA program.
The City of Wanaroo is a powerhouse of growth. In Australia, we grow quicker than anyone else, and we want our business community to grow just as quick as our population. So in the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see a new city centre in Yanchep, you'll see a great new industrial area in Neerabup, you'll also see further expansion of our industrial area in Wangarra, plus amazing activity centres throughout the city. Great opportunities for small business to locate and grow, and we want to make sure the approval process is as quick and easy as possible so we get the great businesses with the great jobs in the great city of Wanaroo.
We are ready for the next step, but being small, family run, it takes a lot of effort from everyone to get there. We can actually start focusing and getting out more out into the market now.
Now it's time to hear from our panel, and I'd like to introduce you to them who are ready to share their experiences of the approval program. I want to reiterate that they represent just a small sample of the great work that's happening across all local governments and through many, many people in this room. We have Daniel Sims, the Chief Executive of the City of Wanaroo, one of the largest growing local government areas, as he said in the video. He's had extensive experience in local government, both in metropolitan and regional West Australia, and holds a Bachelor of Applied Science and a grad dip in business in local government management from Deakin University. Daniel is chairman of the Growth Alliance Perth and Peel and on the committee of and management member of the National Growth Areas Alliance. Wayne Jack is chief executive of the City of Kwinana for 6 years until his appointment as CEO in April 2020. He was CEO at the Napier City Council in New Zealand, responsible for staff of 550 and an annual budget of $110 million. Under Wayne's operational leadership, Napier is now recognised as one of New Zealand's best practice councils. Wayne has a strong naval background with 21 years in the Royal New Zealand Navy, followed by leadership roles in central and local government in New Zealand and Australia. And he's a qualified chartered accountant holding a Bachelor of Business and a graduate certificate in management. Anthony Valletta is Chief Executive of the town of Victoria Park and one of the first people I spoke to about this program. He's worked in both public and private sectors for 35 years, 31 of which he's been specifically in local government, the cities of Swan, Belmont and Subiaco and the town of Vic Park. Anthony was appointed acting CEO in the town in February 2014, where he led the organisation through the state government's local government reform agenda before becoming CEO in May 2015. He has a background in engineering, leadership and management. Anthony was a past president of the Institute of Public Works Engineers WA and Australasian board member. Anthony's a member of the Local Government Advisory Board, Burswick Park Board and LGA Professionals. And Stephen Roddick, Director of Planning and Development at the City of Stirling. Stephen began his town planning career at the City of Stirling in 1997, rejoining the city in 2019. He has over 23 years' experience in local government, is a highly experienced planner. He thrives in engaging with the community, industry groups and applicants in order to achieve best outcomes. And he's responsible for the town planning, development services, environmental health and economic development. Please welcome our panellists to the stage. And please think of those questions you'd like to put them on the spot and learn from them about their experiences. I have a few here, and motley crew, diversity. Five middle-aged guys. There's a challenge for local government. Firstly, Anthony, I'd start with you. As the first local government to join the small business local government, friendly local government initiative, where has your organisation come from in relation to its support for small business, and what does the future hold for the town?
Thanks for the prepared question there, Dave. Look, going back to the local government reform days, I think that's probably when we really started to focus on our own backyard. We had an economic development strategy, had one officer in the organisation to start looking at what we could actually do in that space. Since that time, we were able to restructure the entire organisation, develop a new strategic direction, develop a new economic development strategy, and structure that whole community-focused part of the business. So we've actually introduced a place management approach in our organisation. I know that that's not new for a lot of local governments, but with our approach, it is actually about developing sincere relationships and understanding of what's in each patch of the town. Even though there's a specific role and discipline in economic development, every part of the place manager's role is actually to also look at economic development within their own patch. So, we basically spread the love right across the business, and they are able to concierge any issues through the business, as well as provide economic development feedback to them and help them to grow and survive. I think that has been the basis for what we've done, and I think it's not just an economic development focus, it's a whole business focus, and reframing your culture and your values and your vision to align with that is really what we tried to do in our town since that point.
Certainly one of the things I remember when we first met at a cafe when you were going through this change, I looked down the street and there was a parking inspector looking at my car, and I said, have I parked in the wrong spot? Am I about to get a fine? And you said, no, that's Sally. She's a customer service officer. I'll call her up. I said, no, she's a parking inspector. He said, no, she's a customer service officer. As she's walking up and down checking for cars, and she was going to issue fines, she's also saying hello to all the business operators and checking whether they needed anything. So I thought there is a small but quite significant change in the title and the attitude of a position in the organisation. Daniel, the City of Wanaroo was one of the first local governments to embark on our approvals program at the start of this year. As we saw from the video, attracting businesses to the city was one of the motivators for it being introduced. What are the reforms that will help to attract business to the city?
Thanks, David. I think, as you saw in the video, it felt like a bit of a paid advert for the benefits of Wanaroo. Look, growth is sort of second nature to us, but for us, trying to ensure that our jobs grow with our population is critical. So the opportunity to align with the business approval program was really important for us to be able to set ourselves up as being that sort of reputation for being business friendly. The team, I have an amazing team at the City of Wanaroo. Most of them are here today, were involved in the program, but we really understood that because we're quite a large and complex organisation with a lot of land uses that can create jobs, trying to provide an opportunity for a one-stop shop for our customers and businesses to know where to source information, and that information to be very clear and concise was really important for us. To be able to then provide a sort of someone to hold their hand, a business advocate to help our businesses move and navigate through the system was critical to the process. And then to move into an automated approach for approvals, to try to ask ourselves the question, if it's the right business for the city and it's going to support our objectives as a city, can we grant approval immediately instead of having to go through the approval process was critical. And if we couldn't do that, how could we reform our businesses and our processes to enable a very streamlined approach to approvals? We believe if we can get that right, and that's thanks to the funding and the program, we're on track to do that, we'll be able to be agile enough to be able to attract the businesses that we need.
Great, thanks. Steve, the City of Stirling and cities of Canning were instrumental in enabling us to pilot this and roll out the approvals program more broadly, because you were the two that piloted it. What was the experience like in the pilot, and how has participation in the program influenced the way the city now does business?
I guess the pilot was embraced by both all the staff and the councillors. It was really well received across the organisation. It was a driver, I guess, a catalyst for our culture-centric, a customer-centric culture that we have developed over probably the last 3 years. We had three key focus areas, that being speedy approvals, simplicity, making sure the approval process is simple and people understand what that approval process is about, and of course service, and that's providing useful information across the city through our website that people can get an understanding of what approvals they need from the local government and how they step through that process. We developed an address and application assistant. This is an online tool where someone could just type in their address of their property and find out what approvals they need and work out, can they get their cafe up and running in the location where they want to do. It also shows where if someone wanted to type in, can I put a cafe in this location? What other areas could I, start up my business throughout the city? So that allowed businesses to communicate with the city without, touching and spending time with officers. It's 24/7, and we've had, I think, 30,000 hits or 30,000 users since September last year. So that's been really well received by the community, and it's really helped businesses.
I think it really recently won an award, didn't it?
Yes, we did. We won the Planning Institute of Australia Award for business improvement, and that was a major driver, the address and application assistance. A lot of time goes into those things because you've got to update the database to put in every single scenario, and I think Austin and his team worked on about 135 planning scenarios which could happen, and we'll continue to build on that. But that's been really valuable to not just the small businesses but any customer in Stirling.
Great. And Wayne, the City of Kwinana was one of the most recent participants. Can you share with us the experience of going through the program and the reforms that will be implemented?
Yeah. So
public commitment to the the reforms that will be implemented.
To the commitment, yeah. So the team has sort of been working over the last sort of 18 months on efficiency improvement ideas across council, but it was sort of done in their various areas rather than sort of bringing them all together. So I think being part of this program enabled us to bring together a cross-functional team and then to work together with your team in a quite intense period. One of the things that we did slightly different was, particularly under Maria's leadership, was we brought together cross-functional teams, but they worked for 2 weeks intense period, really focusing on developing those customer personas and working out what are the issues that are really confronting small business. They brought in some small businesses to actually present to the team to go through the challenges that they faced in getting approvals. And some of those was quite confronting really in terms of some of the issues that they faced, but sort of opened up a few ideas and thoughts around just how difficult it was to go through planning processes and approvals. So by having that cross-functional team from across council, from customer service to events to planning to environmental health officers to compliance, enable them to really come up and target specific areas. They came up with about 50 actions across 5 themes. Everything from reducing fees, removing fees, to having single points of contact to help them through that process. So now it's a case of keeping that team together. They've continued to remain in place. They call themselves the Small Business Collective. and are now taking a number of those actions and then driving it across council. So it's been hugely successful.
And it sounds like they've been empowered internally, within the organisation. It sounds like there's an energy.
Yeah, I mean, part of the challenge which I gave them was to think outside the box, that everything is open, to take some risks, to look to see how we could do things differently and really sort of focus on the customer. And what you said initially too, that whilst we're a regulator, it's about how can you use regulations to help a business succeed.
Yeah. Daniel, I was going to sort of flip to you, because on that theme, driving whole of organisation reform can be really challenging, not just for the leadership, but for the individuals involved. I mean, quite often you're challenging the way a person has been doing their job for a decade. So how's the city approached this?
You're right, and in councils like Wanaroo and other growth councils, just the sheer demand to do the operational work can make it really hard to create that space to sort of think about reform. Again, I think it's attitude, first and foremost, attitude that's embedded in our corporate values. Corporate values focused on innovation, best practice, learning, and customer service. For us, we took a stance to create a sense of urgency, to have quite a short and sharp implementation plan. We knew that we needed to, first of all, I was a very strong advocate once at the program at the beginning. Our council had a very strong appetite for meaningful red tape reduction. We know that a lot of the jobs that are created in the next 10 years we don't know about. So how do we create a scheme and zoning that will enable employment generating activities was a critical aspect of council, so they embedded in our strategic community plan, cascaded into our corporate business plan, cascaded into KPIs for myself as chief executive and our directors. So we had a very highly engaged executive. We then formed a dedicated project team similar to Wayne, a team across the organisation that could look at the business and how to grow a business as an outcome, as opposed to just a series of processes within 3 or 4 directorates. We're fortunate enough to have very strong economic development team, very passionate about small business and very well connected with our business community. We had an amazing lady in Jess who worked in our customer service team, who offered to project manage the project for the next 12 months. So we created a dedicated resource to project manage the implementation and the growing of that, supported by the ED team. With the support of Novus, the consultant team, we ensured that the implementation of the program was embedded in our service unit plan, so it became part of our core business, could be reported on, and as CEO I could track its progress. And equally we could report back to our business community for our business association on our progress, but also touch base with some of those businesses that we spoke to at the beginning. And as Wayne said, a very confronting part of the process is listening to very, very passionate small businesses, a lot who have invested their life savings in getting to Wanaroo and wanting to grow their business. And very confronting to know how you can, despite a passion to not have silos in an organisation, to have silos and see the poor customer get lost, and the time and money that's taken to getting lost in the organisation. That really gave a drive to our team, our project team, and a real passion to want to do better. So I think a combination of a systematic approach embedded in your systems, good resources to ensure the urgency of the project continues, but first and foremost it's attitudinal. It's a passion of your team and a commitment to your corporate values to make a meaningful difference to your business community.
Yeah, from the feedback I've received, one of the major differences in this process re-engineering is its human-centred design aspect, which starts with bringing in a small business to almost plead their case, so that people start to relate to somebody who's perhaps leased a premises and are now paying rent for 6 months to get their approvals, and they simply haven't got revenue because they can't open the doors yet. And I think that resonates with most people. Steph, with the City of Stirling, I understand now you've implemented all of the reforms identified in the program. Can you share with us the benefits to both your organisation and the business community?
Yeah, Dave, that's right. We had 32 actions as part of our project, and we've just finalised that in September this year. That's not to say that those actions aren't ongoing, and we will continue to evolve with those processes. Some of the quick wins, I guess, we've seen in terms of development applications at Stirling deal with approximately, on average, 2,000 DAs a year, and if we did a comparison from I think April 2019 to September this year, on average we've cut down approval times from an average of 81 back in April 2019 down to 35 days in September this year. So that's significant, a 50% increase. The other thing, by streamlining our workflows, we've
been able to sack 150 people? No.
No, not yet. They're still working very hard. But no, we've the capacity of the team has increased as well in terms of generating numbers out. So we're at the moment about dealing 50 more applications a month and processing those. So what we've found out, as you said, with that customer-centric approach, is that we've got dedicated teams dealing with fast-track applications. Those dealing with applications east of Wanaroo Road, west of Wanaroo Road, complex applications, business applications. So we've put officers into specialised teams, and that was a bit of work because people didn't want to be, I guess, stuck in one area, but they've now realised the benefit, and we'll rotate those teams over the next 6 months. But one of the biggest improvements is, as we've talked about there, and Anthony said, the whole of business approach. It's not this siloed mentality anymore. What we're trying to do, if someone does put in an application for a cafe, we make sure when that planning approval comes in that we flick it to the building team, and if they need toilets or disabled access, we get back to that person straight away. That person then might decide, I'm not going to do this application because it's going to, I was thinking I was going to spend 100 grand on the improvement to business, but it's going to cost me 150 in terms to get DA compliance. So they might choose, well, okay, I'm not going to go down that path, but at least they find that out within the first week, not after a year of going through planning approval. Getting neighbours offside if we're advertising, and then finding out they need these things. So that's that whole business approach, finding out things earlier. Most people are okay if you tell them you can't do it, but tell them you can't do it early on in the process, not a year down the track. The other big thing was making sure, I guess, the attitudes of staff. You can improve all these processes, but if the attitude's not there, nothing's going to work. If someone picks up the phone and they're in a mood or not, speaking to customers nicely on the phone, that's not going to be a good experience. And no matter what process you have, it's just really making sure that culture is driven through the staff, that every time they have an interaction with someone, that's probably the only time that person's going to have an interaction with them. So give them a fantastic experience. So that's one of the major things I've seen through my stuff, is that the culture's embedded with them now to provide that customer-centric experience, and we celebrate our wins. When we get the feedback, we really get that. And the other thing is good when councils go out in the community now, and if they see where someone was saying, my planning approval's taken 10 weeks and your planners are slow. Even the councils are now being able to say, actually, wait on, we know the guys are pretty quick now. They're very helpful. It must be something about your application which is different. So it gives the councillors that confidence to go back to the community and say, wait on, it's not us doing the wrong thing. Maybe there's an issue with your application. So, and that's really good for the culture across the organisation.
Yeah. And my assumption is, the joke aside about sacking staff, because when I talk about this at state government level, if there's reform and there's streamlining, what it does is release those staff to do more meaningful work. I suppose less time on the application and more on the compliance. You can release them to go and check things. Is that what's happening? And of course, and the other thing is, I know that Stirling had a massive increase in applications, so you probably wouldn't have been able to cope with the demand had you not had this reform.
Yeah, well, going through that, like I said, that specialist teams, it allows them to concentrate and become a specialist in the area, and actually deal with the same types of people, the same types of applicants. So that definitely improves turnaround times. Look, we don't always want to focus on compliance and, I guess, the negative aspects of local government, but yes, that's a reality, and it allows us to do more strategic planning and other opportunities. But also what we've done is also join the teams together. So I have stat planners working with strategic planners, the people who write the policies, assess the plans, and that's a key, because you understand what are the impacts for an applicant or even neighbours, and then you can, when you're writing policies, you have that whole business approach. So that was one of the other moves which we did as part of this project.
I've got one last question before I open out the floor. As West Australians, we love being told what to do from the eastern states. Not. But Wayne, we don't mind it when it comes to New Zealand. Because in all seriousness, I've been to some national forums in the East, and New Zealand is known for its innovation and its leadership in supporting small business. So, as a former CEO of Napier City Council, what learnings do you think we could adopt more broadly in Western Australia that you've seen in New Zealand?
Yeah, I think where Western Australia going is quite good. I think this program is sort of, I'd put it ahead of where New Zealand is in terms of some of the regulatory reform.
Oh, thanks. The $50 is in the mail.
Because I think the key thing is really to have that relationship with state government. Obviously, New Zealand's only got the 2 tiers of government, which I think Australia could look at some stage in the future.
And of course, it's obvious which one we'd abolish with the people in the room here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
I think they're doing a fantastic job. The focus, I think, of this program here really enables to work with state government to look at how you can remove that red tape. I think one of the things that New Zealand local government has done really well, though, is they implemented about 2 years ago a performance excellence program. Because local government, as it always does in whichever country you go to, it gets a bit of a bad rap. And they sort of focus on, the councils that are doing really bad, and then they say that's endemic across all of local government. And so what a performance excellence program does is enables you to highlight who's actually doing well, but to take the learnings from those councils and then apply it across, which is very similar to what this program here does. So you can actually go out to other councils and go, we've seen this work at Wanaroo or at Stirling and that, and so you can then replicate it. So I think that's one of the learnings. But then the other one too is it's a culture change that, yes, local government is a regulator, it's got legislation to comply with, but it's how do you get people to take risk? And I think that's probably one of the areas that New Zealand's probably a little bit more ahead on. They can take a little bit more risk. So it's a case like, take building compliance. It's not how you say no, it's how can you say, how can we work with you to get your building compliance?
Yeah, thanks for that. Is there any questions from the room? I'm conscious of time that I'd said I'd let you get out of here. It's now 9:04. I'd like to thank you all and our panel for sharing their experiences and for taking your time from your busy schedules and for, as you've said, leading your organisations through change, which is never easy. So thank you for that, to the panellists. Thank you all for not only coming this morning, but for partnering, collaborating with my little agency. We're a really small team with a small group of extremely passionate people. I do want to acknowledge Lauren and the crew that have worked with your agencies. They are incredibly passionate about what they do, and they're great advocates for you and your tier of government. So thank you to Lauren and the team. And while I'm sure you've got busy days to get onto, if you want to stay for the next hour, there's plenty of coffee. We've got the room, there's plenty of food, and my team are happy to speak with you about the challenges you've got and things that we can perhaps do for you. So thank you very much.